Well, today, folks, we're really very, very excited that we're bringing a subject matter expert, is an SME, as they used to call it for me in the old days. And this is Debbie McDevitt Hays, is a long-term real estate agent in the town of Dennis, Massachusetts. And just very quickly, I have known Debbie for many years. When I lived in Massachusetts, my parents lived in Massachusetts, and I was in a caretaking situation for my mother in Cape Cod at their home. My father had died trying to work with my mother. Debbie was one of those people that was in, quote, my village in terms of helping. I pulled her into the scene when we went to sell that home in 2015, and you'll hear, as we'll talk about, just a tiny little bit of a difference since that point in time. I'm thinking double of what we got for the home in 2015. But anyways, with that, Debbie, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Also, as you know, we have on our call Dr. Leo Sandy, retired up in the great state of New Hampshire, also been part of our series. And I've known Leo for many, many years, since 1977. And as you know, we have our Jim Sparks, who kind of takes care of us and keeps us in the right direction in terms of IT and what we're trying to do to provide on this. So with that in mind, Debbie, I'd like to kind of throw out this first question. When they talk about, quote, what occurred during the pandemic, how did it affect people? All of a sudden, for those people that are talking about real estate, they seem to need an oxygen mask. And when they start to talk and think about it and said, I can't believe what's happening. So with that, Debbie, if you could kind of go into just a little bit, you've been doing that for so long. How did you begin to set up or plan this onslaught of now what do you do with people that saying, Debbie, help, what are we to do?
Well, as you have alluded to, I've been doing this for a long time. I was a child, of course, when I started, but in 1972, I started my company in Dennis. And at that time, interest rates were 7%. And we were selling 3-bedroom, bath and a half homes with a garage for $26,900.
I'll take that, Deb. Would you send me that link? I'll buy that right now, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I paid $24,900 for my office building, which you've seen here.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
So we've come a long way, needless to say, and the journey has been through up and down of interest rates up to 20%, and now down into the 2s. And so anyone who's knows anything about real estate and purports that they know something about real estate really aren't telling you the truth, because nobody knows what's happening with real estate. I wish I could say that I had a crystal ball. I wish I could say I have all the answers. This year has proved me so wrong that I can't even begin to help. I have buyers that come to me very similar to your friend, who just, they make several offers on properties, and very good offers, and just are not successful because it's the wild, wild west of real estate right now.
Good description.
I've never seen anything like it. Historically, through my entire real estate career, buyers would come and they would make an offer, and they were strictly trying to get the property for the least possible money,
right,
with the best possible terms,
right,
in the best time frame that suited them.
That's what we were taught then.
And
that's
then
what we were taught.
Then you would go to your home inspection, which was one of your contingencies with your offer.
It was always key.
You would further negotiate based on
right,
what you found in that home inspection, and you would grind the seller down a little more maybe on
right,
the price.
Mm.
So to my mind, for the last 40 some years, I have only encountered buyers who really were minding their money, so to speak.
Right.
Now we are in an atmosphere where I don't know where these people are coming from. I don't know where their money's coming from. It just doesn't matter. Nothing matters other than getting that house or that property or whatever it is. I've never seen people just throwing away hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking for a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a garage that really last year would have sold for $380. This year it's listed at $449 and selling for $120,000 over asking cash, no home inspection.
Wait a minute, I got to take my blood pressure on that. I'm falling off my chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what real estate expert can help you with that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It really is beyond, and I understand that this is the case in most of the country.
Right. It is here.
It's where it's
in
not
Florida.
happening,
Yeah.
but it's happening everywhere. My stepdaughter's selling a house in Bozeman, Montana, and she thought maybe the house should be listed at 600 and something, which would be pretty aggressive. And her agent came along and said, "Oh no, we're going to list it at 875 and we're going to get 9 whatever for it."
And that, Debbie, in that example, again, the seller, great, wonderful, they're at the top of the world. But then what was, in this case, and again, not to get too deep into that, but in that family situation, then where does she go and what does she buy with then being on the other end of the crazy world of buying?
Well, this is what we're encountering. We have a lot of people who would like to cash in on this craziness. And I just tell them, you certainly can sell it, but you can't replace it.
Right.
You may make an extra 300,000 more than the property's worth, but you're going to put all of that and more, and then you're going to be lucky if you can be successful in bidding for what you want.
Yeah, because it's not guaranteed.
No.
Even with that, okay, I made more. How do you get what you had and or presumably better, and then being thrown into the circus?
No. And in our case here, and I don't know as it's true in other parts of the country, but it would seem that it would hold true that people say, okay, well, I'm going to sell it and then I'm going to rent until the prices come down again.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's no place to rent. There is not. You couldn't house a dog on Cape Cod right now. They're just, rentals are just scarcer than hen's teeth just because of, well, the normal population that needs rentals, and then you add home buyers who are selling who aren't ready quite to leave yet and they want to rent for a year or 2 years or whatever. So unless you want to go into assisted living,
I might be able to qualify for that then.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that piece, Debbie, about, quote, the rental piece, because as I've said, Meg and I were looking, well, wouldn't it be over the last, and I'll say 5-6 months, even last year, but particularly this year, and said, geez, wouldn't it be nice, because we still have this connection at some level, why don't we just rent a house for a month or two, September and October down the Cape, right? This was January. Last December, January, right? And hooked up with kind of through Airbnb, YouTube, et cetera, just to see, okay, well, what's the possibility of what's coming back? And of course, now again, this was a little less critical, but was coming back with, you're kidding. This is available, this is what it is, and this is what we would pay per month, quote, off season, which, was the term we always used to use, okay? And we would just, you're kidding. So now we said, okay, we're going to probably step back because, Debbie, as I may or may not related, our situation is that we were looking fairly actively up until, I don't know, the last couple of months about a, quote, second property. And that scenario of, okay, let's just buy a second property. It'd be kind of a vacation place, but close enough to the home where we could get to in 30 to 45 minutes, and which in this case, we're talking Alabama. And at which point, just to be able to get away, use it for whatever purposes, great, fine. And, or how about we buy property, get some space, and we build this year? And then all of a sudden started to hit on this, you're kidding me about building. We built a home, Debbie, here in Pensacola, bought a piece of property and got a custom builder and built in 2016, moved in 2017. And our neighbor, who we're very close to, fence line neighbor, had a house destroyed on Perdido Bay, Florida. They are building a brand new house over there this next 12 months with the builder that we use. So we thought, well, great, fine, contacted the builder, and we used him. Again, this was only 2017. You know, I had to kind of catch my breath about, well, we can't promise distribution rates, Tom, how long it's going to take. Who is that guy on the screen there, Jim? Debbie, that's our friend Tom Panis, who just jumped in with us and keeping America safe and still working. Thanks for jumping in, Tom.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, but I appreciate your patience. I'm glad to be here.
No problem whatsoever. Just to let you know, Tom, we've already cured your situation, and you have Debbie has a brand new 4-room, 3-bath, 2-car garage down in Cape Cod on the water for $471, and we've agreed to throw in some addition.
It's good to know, Tom. Thank you,
Okay,
Debbie.
hold on to your seatbelt. There we go.
Anything for a friend of Tom's, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Debbie, we talking with the builder and then said, well, Mr. Murphy, you know, it's not like it was in 2017. We can't guarantee when these materials, you probably heard the cost of wood, but it goes for every single material thing. And so it became this where we started, you know, slipping here and going down and thinking, okay, like Tom, we've discussed, what do you do in the meantime? So, Tom, we were talking about this, and Debbie put it great in terms of the Wild West and the Wild West show in terms of the real estate, great thing. So, folks, I'm just going to throw this back out that we have a little bit of an idea of what we're getting into. So it's either or how, Debbie, just quickly, when people contact you or you're working with people, how do you, it's like, you know, the prosecutor, you know, coaching the witness or the defense. Debbie, how do you prep people to make them understand what they're getting into?
Well, I do this probably several times a week where I get contacted by a buyer who is just now coming into the market and has not even looked at anything yet. And so then we sit down with the tutorial and I just tell them exactly what they're getting into. They have to either have a lot of cash in their pocket, or they have to be very well qualified by a lender before they even look at anything. And depending on their price range, really has a lot to do with how much competition they're going to have. You know, the average price on the Cape now is, I forgot now, I got to look it up, but close to $600,000.
Oh my God.
Wait a minute, Debbie, I have to lie down.
Yeah,
I just need to take a little rest and nap if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And we sold my parents' house, which was a classic Cape, and it was 300 in 2015. So just throwing that out. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, well, something on your street just went on the market. Did I send it to you?
No, you didn't.
It was like 600 and some thousand on your street.
Tom, be brave.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Wait a minute, Deb. I just need to make one comment here. Excuse me, Mr. Panis, but you have a certain hat on.
Oh, yes.
And let me just remind you, sir,
last night you got clobbered.
So let me just remind you that there was a 3-game sweep of, I'm not going to mention the team, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the reminder, and I think
Just
I know.
being a
Yeah.
New York person, I'm just not getting
Yes.
into it. Thank you, Deb.
Okay.
So
Did
with
you
that
watch
prep, then what?
So, yeah, so it's really, I mean, I looked this morning, I think they said the average house on the Cape in a year has gone up 36%. The average, the average of the cost of houses, we were in the 4s and now we're up to almost 6. So, but what I try to just tell people is exactly what we just talked about, that they are entering something that's highly competitive. If they have cash and courage, then
Cash and courage, C and C. Okay, I like that.
they can jump in. But I really try to tell them exactly what we've been talking about and how difficult it's going to be, that they're going to be, there's a lot of competition for every house, depending on the house now. And I'm just saying, any house that you and I would want to live in,
Right.
there's competition. There are houses that languish and don't have that much competition, but they're probably not the one you want. So, I just really try to just give them the tutorial and tell them about how much over asking properties are going for on the average in their price range, and how many other offers are going to come in. We've had anywhere from 15 to 40 offers on the same house, in every kind of scenario. But the one that usually wins is the one with the least risk to the seller, which means
Right.
price, no contingencies, and terms for closing that the seller is looking for. So, that's pretty hard to swallow when you're competing with somebody that's got cash and no contingencies, no home inspection, no anything. So depending on the person and what they're looking for and their time frame. I used to think I could really counsel people. That was, one of my strong suits was
It was for me, Debbie.
counseling people as to what to do and when to do it. Now I have no clue.
Right.
I'm afraid to say anything to anybody, because if I say wait and it gets worse,
Right.
if I say jump in now and everything falls around their ears in 6 months. So, and there's a lot of evidence that we are entering a slowdown. But then again, it's, May and June are always slow months because of weddings and.
Yeah, because of the usual. And just as a quick aside, before I'd like to bring in Leo and Tom, but just as a quick aside, again, putting it in context, being a person who grew up in the greater Boston area and then in suburb, et cetera, but having been in Massachusetts a major part of my life, there was always the American dream was defined as, I was part of families that grew up, born and raised, grew up in Boston, moved to the suburbs of Boston, and then the parents would work. But the great American dream was that you would move to Cape Cod. That my parents, it was someday we're going to be able to move to the Cape. And that was like the promised land. You would vacation in New Hampshire, but the promised land to move to was, quote, over the bridge, okay, the Cape Cod Canal, folks online, to the Cape. My parents were able to do that in the 80s, but as Debbie is describing this, so just to put in a little bit of context, but I'd love to pull in Tom, if you will. Tom, you've been part of this Wild West show a bit in the Twilight Zone that we're going through. If you would just share a little bit as an overview of what you were finding, and does this sound pretty familiar to you?
It sounds all way too familiar, Tom. A few moments ago, you kind of slipped down in the chair and said that was your reaction. And that was it with me. I don't know if you know, Debbie, but my family and me, we live in New York City, and I rented a house in Katuitt for 5 months. I just needed to get out of New York City. And it was an experiment. I didn't know how we would respond as a family living in a house, but we loved it. So we decided we wanted to live there. So I got myself pre-approved. I spoke to the owner, the landlord of the house we were renting. He said he would consider selling it. And I was high. And then we went to our first open house. And there was, Debbie gets it, you know.
Were they serving snacks in the line or what?
No, they just, you know, a lot of people acting politely, wanting to cut your throat, you know, because the competition.
With a mask on.
Yeah, with the mask on. And we kept going, but we found that, you know, I began to feel that the listing prices were kind of a bait and switch, because sellers would put a reasonable listing price knowing that there was going to be a bidding war. And after a few months, I didn't want to play anymore. I just didn't want to be part of 15 and 40, and I don't have a lot of cash. So then we started looking in Connecticut, but we found just about the same thing. Not as bad, not as intense, but about the same thing. So we decided, I don't know if I told Leo, I don't know if I told you, Tom, that we've rented. We've rented a house in Trumbull, Connecticut for a year. And what we're going to do, we're going to just take a deep breath, get out of New York. You know, Leo and Pearl know this, Debbie, but my wife and daughter are Chinese, and there's a lot of anti-Asian violence here in the city, and we don't feel safe. So get us out of New York City. And also I want to watch the market because, like you said, it slows in May and June. Common wisdom has it that it will die down maybe September, maybe the beginning of the year, but we don't know that. It could just keep going in crazy land.
Right.
So that's our plan. You know, in terms of resiliency, Tom, we adjusted by both being persistent amidst the madness, just keep going, keep trying, keep going, and then adjusting, and then say, okay, enough, 10, 15 offers. We saw some houses. A couple of sellers raised it 100% since last year, or 50% since last year. I know the norm is 36%. So I said to, you know, Shafang and I talked, I said, you know, I would do the same thing, but this seems too greedy to me. I don't want to play. So that's my story.
So that's your story, T, and you're going to stick to it.
Right.
Leo, I want to pull you in, my friend, with what you've heard and between family, friends, colleagues, et cetera, all of this that you're hearing about now. What can we begin to offer? Again, we can't offer a whole bunch of cash or do a fund me page for people that can't, but what are you thinking about how, like Tom was talking about, how to make it work, how to adjust? Our thing is the big R in terms of resiliency. How can we begin to offer folks in terms of how do you get through these times and still be able to feel that there is hope and a future?
Well, I think we can process where they are and then ask them what are some of the possible choices that they could make, and looking at some of the pros and cons of those choices.
Right. Along those lines, Leo, I had begun to, when we knew we were going to have Debbie come on, I started doing a bit more, quote, reading about real estate articles, et cetera. But there was this new piece that was coming up where people were calling themselves, and quote, certified as financial coaches. They're not going to give advice. They're not about investment per se. They're not a broker, you know, for any particular mutual fund, et cetera. So in looking at that, I thought that was kind of an interesting, because they are starting to come to the forefront as if there was, you know, performance coaches, executive coaches, life coaches. But their thing was, how do you support people around education and discipline around goals about finances? And I thought that was kind of an interesting boutique service that started to come about. What else can we offer, folks? Is there anything else that we can offer our friends out there about what they're going through? And Tom, you've gone through some times, and yet we communicate, and here you are, you came out the other side. Now, this is one challenge that, many of us in life experience, many other people experience.
Go ahead, Chinchi.
Yep, there we go. We got friends and family. There we go. So you got through. How do we begin to take a look at what does it take to get through these types of challenges? And is there similarity to the challenges that we know we all go through and our other friends and family go through also that they can tap into?
Well, Tom, I think that one of the things that we all have in common that has helped us is persistence. Just keep going. And like Leo just said, look at the possibilities in any given situation. But look at your health challenges, what you've gone through. You keep going. You just keep going. You go out in the yard, you try. Oh, no, not today, but you keep going. Leo, you never give up. And like you said when you were talking last week, you said, sometimes you just got to suck it up. Right. So I don't think that's a profound concept, but I'll bet the three of us can do variations on that.
Well, Carl looked at about 6 or 8 houses.
And Leo, Carl is for the group?
Yeah, my son.
Gotcha.
And we've been trying to talk him into buying a house for years. Right. He didn't want to bother with it. And now, he should have done that. He should have listened to us, but he's our kid. He doesn't listen to us. So he looked at 6 or 8 houses, put bids on all of them. And we finally talked about, how much, the fundamental question is, how much should we overbid? And I don't know what he overbid, but the last house he really, really wanted. So I knew he overbid, and he got it. And
he got it.
He got it.
I didn't know that.
But the real estate person knows the owner of the house, and I think she twisted the owner's arms a little bit so Carl would be able to get the house. And so I think that helped besides the overbid. But he got a nice house in 2 blocks from downtown Keene.
Good for him. He made it.
And he likes the city. He doesn't want to live in the country, so he wants to be able to walk downtown.
Right. So, and knowing the family, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
And
so he passes papers in about 3 weeks.
Outstanding. That's good news. So I guess one of the things we want to be able to, in terms of wrapping up a bit, is we often talk about, Tom, persistence. I'm just going to make a quick reference to Mr. Jim over there, my good friend, that during some of these times of the past year, Jim brought me into trying to play racquetball again in January of 2020, and then boom, everything was closed down, and I had not played for 25 years, and it was some of the best times I had. But Jim this past year was saying, well, I'm not getting out as much, I'm not doing stuff, I'm not exercising, it's affecting life. I need to be able to start to take more control. And then Jim relays to me that he went out and was able to track down and find and pick up a high-end bicycle. No. And I get these little notes that he's out on the trails every day. So, we're talking real estate, but I think we're also talking about, challenges that we've met in our lives. How did we get beyond them? What little strategies did we find about that? So I think we've talked about, Jim is talking about we need to make goals about exercise. Tom is talking about persistence, how to get through those challenges. And I guess I would bring in a little bit of being able to maybe redefine where one or the family is at during a given point in time in life, and saying to ourselves, what is most important? If we're not able to do this thing about, quote, competing at the top, how can we still get through life? Enjoy, Dave, whether you call it carpe diem, I go more by the hour with what I've experienced over the last number of years. But it's what are the things that give pleasure, give joy? What does it take to accomplish some of those things? How do you stick with it, whether it's stop smoking, stop drinking, weight control? I don't care, whatever it is. But I think that goes back to some of the things we're talking about, how to establish some of those short-term goals. How do we get support around them, which we used to call the 3 F's, with family, faith, and friends? And at which point, how do you bring that together to make another day for oneself and for others? So with that in mind, I think we're winding down a little bit. I wanted to really give applause to my old friend, Deb McDevitt Hays, real estate agent from Dennis, Mass., who, again, looking back, was kind of part of my extended family for a period of time. And, it takes a village. And that concept was with Debbie for me for years. So I wanted to thank her for coming and jumping on a bit with that. And our usual Leo Sandy, Jim Sparks, Tom Panis. And with that in mind, we'd love to see and hear from you folks again. Please hit the subscribe button and click that you like it. And more, and Tom's laughing there. And when we get that, we'll give you more good stuff.